My name is Marina Hale, and I'm 37 years old. If you had looked at my life on paper 3 months ago, you would have said something tidy and harmless, like, she's fine, she's stable, she's got it figured out. And honestly, you wouldn't have been wrong. I had a quiet life, modest house, reliable car, retirement contributions that steadily ticked upward like a metronome marking time. Nothing extravagant, nothing chaotic, just order, calm, and the familiar hum of routines I built myself. Then I met Lucas Armitage. We met through a hiking group. He was polished, confident, charming, worked in consulting, came from old money, carried himself like someone who had always known where the expensive exits were. We started dating casually. It became serious around month 8. After 2 years, I thought we were quietly building something real. But I also knew from the very first dinner I had with his family that they didn't see me the way he did. The Armitage home was the kind of place where every object had a silent price tag attached. Country club wealth, summer homes, art on the walls that looked like paint had been thrown by someone charging per brushstroke. The first time I walked in, Lucas's mother took one look at my shoes, simple tan flats, and smiled tightly. "That's practical," she'd said, the way someone might comment on a weather forecast. His father asked about my job in civil project administration, then interrupted his own question to ask a passing server for a different wine. His sister Serena asked if I'd ever considered aiming higher with my career, the kind of question that sounded like curiosity until you noticed the glint behind it. Lucas always apologized later. "They're old-fashioned," he'd say. "They'll warm up. Give them time." Except time did nothing. Every family dinner felt like walking into someone else's audition. Not performing well enough, not impressive enough, not enough. But with Lucas, it was easy. He'd squeeze my hand under the table, and his eyes would soften, like he was silently promising, "Ignore them. I'm here." I believed him. I shouldn't have. The moment everything shifted happened on a Sunday in late August. We were at his parents' mansion for their monthly brunch. Lucas was upstairs changing because his sister had commented that his shirt clashed with the dining room aesthetic. I wandered into the living room and sat on the massive couch. Then I heard voices down the hall, coming from the study. The door was cracked open just an inch. Lucas's mother. "She's nice, but she's so ordinary." His father. "No presence, no ambition." His mother again. "Lucas can do better, much better. Remember Camille, his ex? Now she had potential. We should invite her to the charity gala next month. Let them reconnect." His father hummed in agreement. "She was polished, elegant, came from a good family. Perfect fit. Perfect fit." The words slid under my skin like splinters. I didn't listen for more. I stepped away from the doorway and went back to the living room to stare at that ridiculous painting again. It looked different now, like some abstract joke I hadn't been in on. When Lucas came downstairs, he glanced at my face. "You ready?" I said yes. My voice sounded like it came from someone else. Brunch blurred past me. I barely spoke. On the drive home, he reached across the console. "You were quiet today." "Just tired." He accepted that. That evening, we were at his apartment. He was cooking a meal that required ingredients I couldn't pronounce. "Marina," he said suddenly, not looking up from the pan. "I need to tell you something." My fingers tightened around my glass. "Okay." "My parents want me at their charity gala next month, and they're inviting someone. Someone they want me to reconnect with." The room went cold. "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. He exhaled. "Camille." I put my glass down slowly. "And what do you want?" He finally looked at me, hesitated. "I think they're being ridiculous, but they're not going to stop pushing, and she'll be there. And I want you to understand." "Understand what?" "That my parents prefer her. They think you're too plain." There it was. The truth spoken not in cruelty, but in resignation. A clarity settled inside me, heavy, sharp, alive. "Fair enough," I said. Lucas frowned. "What, that's it?" "What else am I supposed to say?" He wanted a fight. Tears, begging. Something dramatic enough to match the discomfort of the moment. But I felt nothing except a sudden crystalline truth slicing through the last 2 years. I'm not going to compete for your parents' approval, I told him quietly, and I'm not going to stand in the way of their dreams of a perfect daughter-in-law. Marina. I'm tired, Lucas. I am tired of shrinking myself so they feel taller. His face twisted. We'll talk later. I need some space. He didn't stop me when I walked out. He never did. I drove home with the windows down, the night wind cold against my face, feeling like I'd just stepped out of a house that had been slowly suffocating me. The week after that conversation, I moved through my life on autopilot. Every night, though, when the house was finally quiet, the same thoughts looped in my head. They think you're too plain. My parents prefer her. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he'd said it. Like it was a weather report, just a neutral fact I needed to absorb and move on from. I didn't text him. He didn't text me. That alone told me more than I wanted to admit. I made a list because that's what I do when the world feels tilting. What I have with Lucas: comfort, familiarity, shared jokes. What I don't have with Lucas: public defense, respect from his family, a seat at the table that isn't conditional, the sense that I am enough as I am. My chest tightened as I typed the last one. I realized that for 2 years, I've been auditioning for a role I never actually wanted. But in his world, enough had always been calibrated against someone like Camille. By Saturday night, I knew what I had to do. I called him Sunday afternoon. Can we talk? Yes, please come over. His voice sounded relieved, hopeful even. He thought this was the conversation where we'd work through it, where I'd tell him I understood, that I'd decided to stay. He didn't realize what he'd already taught me. When he opened the door, he looked like he hadn't slept much. I'm glad you're here. We sat across from each other at his dining table. I shouldn't have said it like that, he blurted. About what my mother said. I was just trying to be honest. You were, I agreed, surprising him. That's what scares me. He flinched. For 2 years, your parents have made it very clear what they think of me, I said quietly. I've listened to your father change the subject when I talk about my work. I've listened to your sister ask if I've considered doing something more significant with my life, as if what I do doesn't matter. They're just old-fashioned. You've used all of those words, but what they really are is disrespectful, and you let them be. His jaw tightened. I've defended you in private after the fact. My voice didn't rise, but I saw him flinch anyway. You apologize to me later, but you never stop them while it's happening. You never tell them to knock it off at the table. That's not fair. It's completely fair. When I talked, you told me your parents prefer Camille, that they think I'm too plain, and you said it like it was just another fact I needed to accept. I would rather you had said, my parents are wrong. I love you, and I'm not going to let them compare you to anyone. He looked away. I love you. That has to count for something. It does. But it doesn't erase the fact that you've let them treat me like I'm not enough for 2 years. This doesn't have to be the end. I can talk to them. I'll set boundaries. I just didn't realize how much it was hurting you. You've had 2 years. 2 years of watching me sit through dinners where I was the easiest target, and you only want to change now because I finally said I'm done. Then answer this. Why didn't you defend me the first time your sister mocked my career? Or the 5th? Why didn't you tell your father to stop changing the subject when I answered his questions? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I didn't want to make things worse. You don't know what they can be like when someone pushes back. So, you sacrificed me instead. You kept the peace with them by letting them disrespect me. You chose the path of least resistance, and I was the one who had to live with the cuts. I'm not accusing you of being a villain, Lucas. I'm saying you're not brave enough to be my partner. Not in the way I need. He sucked in a breath. That's harsh. That's reality. I'm done, I said quietly. His head snapped up. What? I'm done with this, with us, with trying to fit into a world where I'm always a few steps below the bar, with loving someone who lets me sit at a table where I'm never really welcome. He stood up suddenly, pacing. You're just going to walk away after everything? Because of something my parents said? I'm walking away because of what you didn't say. Because of every time you stayed silent. He shook his head. We can fix this. I'll talk to them. I'll make them apologize. You can't undo 2 years with one speech. Even if you manage to drag an apology out of them, it'll be because they're afraid of losing you, not because they truly respect me. Please, he whispered, don't do this. I love you. I loved who I thought you were. The man who would stand up for me, who would put up a wall between me and anyone who tried to make me feel small. But that man, either he doesn't exist, or he isn't strong enough to show up. So that's it? You're just leaving? Yes, I am. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life trying to prove my worth to people who have already decided I don't have any. And I'm not going to be with someone who thinks love is enough to compensate for silence. I picked up my bag. Goodbye, Lucas. Marina, please. I walked to the door, opened it, and stepped into the hallway. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. But beneath the fear, there was something else. Relief. The first week was hard. I reached for my phone a dozen times a day. I drafted messages I never sent. But by the second week, I noticed something else. My shoulders felt lighter. I woke up in the morning and didn't brace myself for someone else's expectations. I went hiking without checking if he was free. For the first time in 2 years, I started to feel like my life belonged to me again. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. By week 3, an unknown number called. I recognized the voice immediately. Lucas's mother. What do you want? We need to talk. No, we don't. Please, just 5 minutes. I should have ended the call. I didn't. Fine, 5 minutes. Something happened at the gala. It's about Camille and Lucas. I didn't respond. They were reconnecting, or we thought they were, but later in the evening he walked in on her very publicly, very aggressively flirting with the son of one of my husband's business partners. He confronted her and Camille laughed, told him he was naive to think she was interested in anything serious. She said Lucas only approached her because we begged him to, that she was only there to network, not rekindle anything. She humiliated him in front of half the board members. He's devastated. Something in my chest twisted. Not quite sympathy, not quite satisfaction. I'm sorry that happened to him, but I don't know why you're telling me. Because we were wrong, about her and about you. I let out a humorless breath. It took Camille humiliating your son in public for you to figure that out. We pushed you away, and we shouldn't have. You were good for him. Stable, kind. My plainness is looking pretty appealing now, huh? Will you talk to him? Please. He needs you. He doesn't need me. He needs therapy. We made mistakes. You made patterns, and they didn't break until they hurt you. Not me. You won't consider coming back? No. Even if I wanted to, which I don't, nothing has changed. You disapproved, he absorbed it, and I end up being the one who has to shrink. That won't happen again. Please, he loves you. He loves the idea of me now that Camille isn't an option. That's not love. That's convenience. I ended the call. She called again. I declined. Then the text started. I blocked the number. 2 days later, I pulled into my driveway after work and froze. Lucas's car was there. He was sitting on my front steps. You need to leave, I said through the open window. He stood up. Please, just talk to me. There's nothing to talk about. I'm sorry, I was wrong. They were wrong. Everything was wrong. And yet, nothing changes what happened. He took a step toward my car. She humiliated me, in front of everyone. I've never felt so stupid. I'm genuinely sorry you went through that. No one deserves to be mocked like that. But it doesn't change anything between us. He shook his head. It has to. I need you. You needed me to be impressive enough for your parents to tolerate. Now you need me because someone else rejected you. Those aren't the same thing as choosing me. I don't care what they think anymore. I'll tell them that. I'll defend you. You will care. Maybe not today, but eventually. You grew up with their approval being the air you breathe. You don't unlearn that in a week, and I refuse to spend my life being your rebellion instead of your choice. Please, I love you. And I loved you. But love without respect isn't love. It's slow damage. He took another step forward. I locked the door. Go home, Lucas. Heal. Figure out who you are without your parents' voice in your head. But don't come here expecting me to fix you. I put the car in reverse. He stood there, eyes red, tears streaking down his face, watching me back out of the driveway. He tried calling that night. I didn't answer. He sent messages through friends. I told them firmly to stop. The Armitages weren't done with me yet. Lucas's father showed up at my workplace. Marina, we need to talk. No, we don't. I'm offering to make things right. I'll give you a position at my firm. Better title, significant pay increase, executive track, corner office. You're trying to bribe me. I'm trying to fix this. You can't fix this. You insulted me for 2 years, made sure I knew I wasn't good enough, and now that your perfect pick humiliated your son, you want to buy me back into his life like a corporate asset. This isn't. It's exactly that. You're not sorry. You just want the narrative back under your control. I stepped past him and told the security guard, I don't want him here. Then came attempts through new numbers, voicemails, promises of therapy, offers of money, invitations to dinners. It was like watching a powerful machine frantically spinning its wheels, unable to accept that the person they'd underestimated had simply walked away. Every day reinforced the same truth. They weren't sorry for treating me badly. They were sorry their actions had consequences. Then came the night that sealed it. I'd gone to the gym after work. When I walked out to the parking lot, Lucas was there, leaning against his car. I'm not leaving, not until you talk to me. Then you'll be here a long time. I didn't slow down. He moved closer, panicked. Marina, please. I exhaled, exhausted, then opened my door and stepped out. You have 5 minutes. I cut them off. My parents, my sister. I haven't spoken to them in 3 weeks. That's between you and them. I did it for you. Don't do things for me. We're not together. But we could be. No, we couldn't. Why not? I love you. I know. But you don't love me more than you fear disappointing them. You never did. He swallowed hard. That's not true. It is. And it's okay. I'm not angry about it anymore. I just refuse to live my life as someone's rebellion. You're here because Camille didn't want you. Because your family realized they'd been wrong. Because everything fell apart. Not because you suddenly understood my worth. If Camille had taken you back, you'd be with her right now. He closed his eyes. And so would they. Your parents would have celebrated. You know I'm right. His silence was the answer. You're not with me because of love. You're here because I'm your only option that doesn't sting. I can change. No. You can grow, maybe, but not into the man I need. We're not compatible, Lucas. We never were. You should go. Please, just please. I want someone who thinks I'm impressive, exactly as I am. Someone who doesn't need me to earn my seat at the table. You're not that person, and that's okay. But I'm done trying to force a fit. He didn't follow when I got back into my car. In the rearview mirror, he stayed standing there, shrinking smaller and smaller until he was just a dark blur. By the time I reached the intersection, he was gone. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. 2 months. That's how long it had been since that parking lot. 2 months since the last message, the last plea, the last attempt by the Armitages to pull me back into a world that had never been built for me. 2 months of no drama, no apologies wrapped in entitlement, no begging disguised as devotion. Just quiet. The peaceful kind. The kind that lets you hear yourself again. On Saturday mornings, I started waking up without that tight, bracing feeling in my chest. I brewed my coffee the way I liked it. I ate breakfast at my cluttered little kitchen table, sunlight spilling across unpaid bills and grocery lists. And it looked like home, not failure. I started hiking again, really hiking. I joined a new group, people who didn't care what I did for a living or whether my shoes were practical in a patronizing tone. The first time I stood on a ridge overlooking the valley at sunrise, cool air biting my cheeks, I felt something click into place. This is mine. My pace, my breath, my life, not borrowed from anyone else's expectations. I started saying yes to invitations I used to decline. After-work dinners, trivia nights, even a pottery class where my mug came out crooked. I laughed more in those 2 months than I had the entire previous year. One afternoon, I ran into a coworker in the break room, Alana, a project manager with a dry sense of humor and the kind of smile that always looked like she knew a secret. We'd worked together for years, but this time she paused and said, "You look lighter." I blinked. Lighter? Yeah, like someone finally took a boulder off your shoulders. I let out a quiet laugh. Maybe someone did. A week later, she asked if I wanted to grab dinner after work. I hesitated for half a second, then said, "Sure." Not because I was ready for anything serious, but because it felt easy. The restaurant was nothing like the places Lucas favored. No marble tabletops, no curated wine lists. It was a tiny corner bistro with mismatched chairs and walls painted in warm, earthy tones. The air smelled like butter and garlic. Halfway through the meal, she asked, "So, what do you do for fun?" "Hiking, mostly reading. I'm pretty simple." She twirled a strand of pasta around her fork. Simple is good. Simple is honest. I don't know why those 3 words hit as deeply as they did. Maybe because for 2 years, simple had been an insult, but hearing it now, with no judgment attached, it felt different. Like permission. Like the universe whispering, "See, you were never the problem." For the rest of dinner, the conversation flowed effortlessly. Work stories turned into hiking stories. Childhood memories turned into bizarre houseplant tragedies. Not once did she look past me the way Lucas's family had. Not once did she measure my worth in ambition metrics or pedigree points. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was auditioning. I felt seen. Not as a project, not as a compromise, not as a consolation prize. Just Marina, unpolished, ordinary, honest. Enough. A few days later, a coworker asked if I ever regretted leaving Lucas. I thought for a long moment. "Not even a little," I said. "Really? What about everything that happened with his ex?" "That wasn't my win. That was their wake-up call, and it had nothing to do with me." "But you loved him." "I loved who I thought he was. The man who would stand up for me, who would defend me, who would choose me, even when it cost him something." "So, what changed for you?" I smiled, soft and certain. "I realized that love without respect is just pain with better marketing." She laughed and said, "That's dark." "It's true." Then I finished the last sip of my coffee and felt a quiet warmth spread through me. Not triumph, not vindication, just peace. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't measuring myself against anyone else's expectations. I wasn't waiting for someone to choose me. I wasn't auditioning for a seat at a table where I never truly belonged. I had walked away. I had rebuilt. And I had finally found the version of myself who didn't need external validation to breathe. Ordinary, simple, stable, real. All the things the Armitages had mocked. All the things I had come to hold like a revelation. I made the right choice, and I would make it again, every single time.